8th January 1964. The mother shows a sketch she has just drawn to illustrate the passage in Savitri in which Sri Aurobindo speaks of the sardonic rictus on God's face. I wanted to see this sardonic laugh of the Lord, so I looked, and instead of a sardonic laugh, I saw a face with such a deep sorrow, so deep, so grave, and full of compassion. It's after that I said, you remember it was over there in the music room on December 31st, 1963. I was seeing that. Falsehood is the sorrow of the Lord. It was naturally based on the experience that everything is the Lord. There is nothing that cannot be the Lord. So what is this sardonic smile? I was looking at that, and then I saw this face. So, as I'm supposed to do sketches for Huta's paintings, I did the sketch, Falsehood is the Sorrow of the Lord. Sri Aurobindo had the feeling or the sensation that what was farthest from the Lord, I always base myself now on that experience, which is very concrete in its sensation of the nearness or farness. It isn't a farness in feelings, not that. It's like a material fact, yet it isn't located in space. Well, Sri Aurobindo, for his part, felt that the farthest was cruelty. That's what he felt farthest from. That vibration seemed to him the farthest from that of the Lord. And yet, it sounds bizarre, but in cruelty, one can still feel distorted the vibration of love. Far behind or deep within that vibration of cruelty, there is still distorted the vibration of love. And falsehood, the real falsehood that doesn't arise from fear or anything of the sort, that has no reason behind it, real falsehood, the negation of truth, the willed negation of truth, is, to me, something completely black and inert. That's the feeling it gives me. It is black, blacker than the blackest coal, and inert. Inert without any response. When I read that description in Savitri, a tract he reached, unbuilt and owned by none, I felt a sorrow which I thought I had been unable to feel for a long time. A long time. I thought I was, how shall I put it, cured of that possibility. And last time, when I saw that, I saw it was still there. And while I was looking, I saw this same sorrow in the Lord, in His face, His expression. The deliberate negation of all that is divine, of all that we call divine. The divine, for us, is always the perfection not yet manifested. All the marvels not yet manifested, and which must keep on growing, of course. The far end of the manifestation, assuming that there was a progressive descent, there may have been one, I don't know. There have been so many perceptions of what happened, sometimes contradictory, always incomplete and humanized. But if you consider the aspect of evolution, you tend to consider a far end from which you proceed to another far end. It's obviously childish, but anyway. Or an extreme way of being that grows towards the opposite extreme way of being. Well, what seems to me the blackest and most inert, the total negation of that to which we aspire, is what constitutes falsehood. In other words, this is perhaps what I call falsehood. Because falsehood in the human way is always mixed with all kinds of things. But falsehood proper is this. It is the assertion that the divine does not exist, life does not exist, light does not exist, love does not exist, progress does not exist. Light, life, love do not exist. A negative nothingness, a dark nothingness. And it may be this that clung to evolution and made darkness, which denied light, death, which denied life, and hatred, cruelty, and all that which denied love. But this is already diluted. It's already in a diluted state. There has already been a mixture. Oh, if we wanted to make poetry, it's no longer a philosophical or spiritual way of seeing, but a pictorial way. We could imagine a Lord who is a totality of all the possible and impossible possibilities, in quest of a purity and perfection that can never be reached and are ever progressive. And the Lord would get rid of all in the manifestation that weighs down his unfolding. He would begin with the nastiest. You see it? Total night, total unconsciousness, total hatred. No, hatred still implies that love exists. The incapacity to feel nothingness. We're on the way. I still have a little bit of it, that total unconsciousness left. 22nd February 1964. 21st February message was translated in an interesting way. I read it, then I concentrated. A was sitting here, not moving or saying anything. So first I said a word or two to him to establish the atmosphere. Then I remained quiet, and it simply came. It isn't exactly a translation. Her will opposed the cosmic rule. To stay the wheels of doom, this greatness rose. 18th March, 1964. But it's my method for Savitri, too. It's a long time since I stopped translating. I follow the thought up to a point, and then, instead of thinking this way, I think that way. That's all. So it's not pure English, nor pure French either. Personally, I would like it to be neither English nor French, to be something else. But for the moment, what words ought to be used? I clearly feel that to me, both in English and French, and maybe in other languages, if I knew any, words have another meaning, a slightly unusual and far more precise meaning than they do in languages as we know them. Far more precise. Because, to me, a word means exactly a certain experience. And I clearly see that people understand quite differently. So I feel their understanding as something hazy and imprecise. Every word corresponds to an experience, to a particular vibration. 29th March, 1964. The date when the mother and Sri Aurobindo first met, 50 years earlier. Because thou art, men yield not to their doom, but ask for happiness and strive with fate. 26th September 1964. She already wrote to me the other day. She's upset because I can't read anymore. I used to read Savitri aloud, and she wanted to record me. I told her, I can't read anymore. It's not possible. So she wrote to me that I must make use of my grace in order to cure my eyes. They can't get it into their heads. You know, for them, when they say that there is a grace, the purpose of the grace is to do what they like, of course. And if it doesn't do what they like, there's no grace. It's the same thing with those who accept the idea of God, only if God does exactly what they like. And if he doesn't do what they like, there's no God. It's not true. He's an imposter. 14th November, 1964. I read a line in Savitri that struck me very much, because I saw a connection with what you said the other day about the coexistence of falsehood and truth. And earth grow unexpectedly divine. That's right, unexpectedly divine. And even the most skeptical will be compelled to see that something is changing, that it's not the same thing anymore. Sri Aurobindo said, he said it to me personally, and he wrote it. The time has come. Because he went away, people thought he was wrong. That was the general effect. They said to themselves, he thought the time had come, but he went away because he saw he was wrong. That's rubbish. When darkness deepens, strangling the earth's breast, and man's corporeal mind is the only lamp. As a thief's in the night shall be the covered tread of one who steps unseen into his house. A voice ill-heard shall speak, the soul obey. A power into mind's inner chamber steal. A charm and sweetness open life's closed doors. And beauty conquer the resisting world. The truth light capture nature by surprise. A stealth of God compel the heart to bliss, and earth grow unexpectedly divine. 8th May, 1965. And never lose the white spiritual, and never lose the white spiritual touch. It can drink up the sea of all delight, and never lose the white spiritual touch. Yesterday, I read with Huta. Yesterday, I read with Huta Savitri's series of experiences when she begins with self-annulment. Annul thyself so that God alone exists. I no longer remember, but that's the idea. Annul thyself that only God may be. It begins with self-annulment. Then she has the experience of being the all, that is, of being the supreme in herself, and the entire manifestation and all things. There are 3 passages. It's an absolutely wonderful description. It's extraordinarily beautiful. The world of unreality ceased to be. She was a single being, yet all things. The world was her spirit's wide circumference. It's a chapter that doesn't have a title. Book 7, Canto 7. The mother vainly looks for the passage in Savitri. First, she meets her soul, a house of flames. She enters the house of flames and unites with her soul. The Finding of the Soul, Book 7, Canto 5. It's after that, after there is nirvana and the discovery of the all-negating absolute, Book 7, Canto 6. She goes into nirvana and becomes just a violet line in nothingness. Unutterably effaced, no one and null, a vanishing vestige like a violet trace, a faint record merely of a self now past. She was a point in the unknowable. Then finds herself back in her body. That's where it begins. A chapter without a title. Book 7, Canto 7. I'll find it some other time. The mother puts aside the book. It has been a revolution in the atmosphere. That's why I'm telling you about it, because all the experiences described in Savitri are precisely the experiences I have. So then, suddenly in the body, I was over there in the music room, and Huta was reading to me. Then when she had finished reading, all of a sudden, the body sat up straight in an aspiration and a prayer of such intensity. It was a dreadful anguish, you know. See, the whole experience is here, in the mother, complete, total, perfect. And because this thing, the body, has lived too long, it no longer has the power of expression. And it said, "But why, Lord? Why? Why do you take away from me the power of expression? Because this has lived too long." It was a sort of revolution in the body's consciousness. Things have been much better since, much better. There has been a decisive change. It was the exact description of the body's present state.